name is Kendra Switzer, and I'm here today to interview uh, Dr. Kate Heidemann, whose article titled A System for Describing Vocal Timbre in Popular Song gave me new insight on how to better describe different vocal timbres. Certainly, how to better explain it to my voice students. Kate, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule for this. How are you doing this Sunday afternoon?
I am fine. Yeah, got a little, was watching a little bit of a K-drama earlier and have like dried my eyes, and I'm now happy to be here talking to you about something more serious and professional.
Wait, which one were you watching? I've just started watching those.
It's called Love Next Door. I just saw
That,
something about it on TikTok and it seemed very cute.
that sounds familiar.
But it's the truth with all K-dramas, it seems very cute and fun. And then like three-quarters into the show, there's always some, traumatic family history that comes out, so drama or revenge subplot, which is why they're fun. So yeah,
Hmm.
it's kind of a tear jerker.
Yeah, as with most of them. Yes, so okay, apparently you and I need to talk later. Um, but what's the weather like where you're at right now?
It seems nice. It's sort of a crisp fall day. It's cooled off here. I'm in New York City. Um, yeah. You're in Kansas, right?
Yes, I'm in Lawrence, Kansas, so about an hour away from Kansas City.
Okay. Kansas City is nice. I have spent a lot
Hmm.
of time there. Don't
Hmm.
know how much time I've spent in Lawrence. Sorry.
Been here quite a bit. Um, for those that don't know about her background, she completed her PhD in 2014 with her dissertation titled Hearing Women's Voices in Popular Song, Analyzing Sound and Identity in Country and Soul. She has taught in places like Columbia University and Colby College and has presented research at conferences for Feminist Theory and Music, Society for American Music, Society for Music Theory, and more. Her current position is, and correct me if I'm wrong, Senior Director and AP World Languages at Arts Manager. Can you talk a little bit about what that entails? As
Yes,
much as you can.
sure. Yes. So I work for a program called AP. It's Advanced Placement. It's possible that many people watching this have taken an AP exam if they're a US high school student at some point in their lives. So yeah, I work on the team that helps develop the exams themselves. We're the content team, and I manage a small team of people who make the AP Music Theory exam and people who make the AP Latin exam. And we're housed in a team of people who also make the English language and literature, all the world languages, and art and design too. It's a neat but niche job making standardized tests and
Hmm.
curriculum for high school students. Yeah.
Okay, so we'll go ahead and get started with your hard-hitting questions. First one I have is when you were working on your undergrad and master's degree, what was your instrument? You've written about vocal timbre, but I don't want to just automatically assume that your main instrument was voice.
I am an oboe player. Still, I'm sort of an erstwhile oboe player at this
So
point,
see,
but yeah.
there you go. That's why
Yes,
you don't assume.
not a vocalist, although in order to do research for my dissertation in this article, I did take vocal lessons. Uh, I don't know how. I mean, my vocal teacher, Evelyn Troyster, in Brooklyn, she's amazing because she could sing, funk and classical. She was actually like a very beautiful interpreter of German Lied. Um, and she also has done all kinds of things like yoga instructing and all of this stuff that's so her approach to teaching is very, very connected to the body and relaxation techniques and all the things that you need to do, honestly, to be a musician of any kind, but especially a vocalist. So, but yeah, I'm an oboe player, have been since I was about 10 years old, and have definitely had the most experience doing that.
Well, as a vocalist, I certainly appreciate your trek into the vocal side of things. So thank you very much for those articles. So what inspired you to focus on music theory when you decided to go to college?
Um, anger. No, I think I was a lot of things I do are motivated by spite. No, that's not actually true. No, I knew I wanted to study music. My happy place was the music department. I was involved in a lot of performing ensembles. Um, I was not a great music theorist when I started. I used to tell my students the first music theory quiz I took in college, I got a D on, um, which was, of course, enraging, which is anger is very motivating feeling. So it's good to get, irritated because it makes you want to do better. I think the thing, by the time I got to about my third semester of theory, and we actually started talking about Schenkerian analysis, sort of large scale um, considerations of pieces of music, was when I was like, oh, okay, this is why I'm studying this. I really want to understand why music makes me feel the way I feel, why composers make the decisions that they make, how I can emulate the composers that I really admire. And so that's, yeah. And I had a fantastic teacher as well. I mean, I had several fantastic teachers, but somebody who became sort of a mentor to me was Stephen Nuss at Colby College. And he did all of this really great, it still does, I assume, really great interdisciplinary work. So the idea, and he introduced me to the scholarship of Suzanne Cusick and the idea that you could talk about music and really important things like identity and culture and all of these things could be combined with music theory was really, really appealing to me.
Awesome.
I think
Um,
that's what I answered your question, right? Why did I
no, no, no,
music
no, no.
theory?
I love that answer. I especially loved the very beginning where didn't you say
Inauspicious.
about your first music theory test you got a D on, which I feel like can definitely be so relatable to a lot of people. So I very much appreciate that answer.
Yeah, it's hard.
Mhm. Music theory's hard.
Yeah.
Um, So, given your current position, what led you to switch from academic research and writing to a more administrative position in education?
That's the question I thought about the most coming into this because there are so many reasons. It's very hard to summarize all of them. But I think the shortest answer I can give you is that I had been teaching full time for 2 years, and I realized that it just wasn't the right career for me. I think temperamentally, I was like, oh, like I love learning. Teaching is it, I feel sort of uncomfortable being the center, the focus of everyone's attention every day.
Yeah.
There are certain things about it where I was like, I just don't think I'm cut out for this. I don't think this is the right fit for me. And I think also the research side of things, I was just thinking, I published that article, and I was, looking into my future, thinking like, oh, do I really want to revise my dissertation as a book? I just was like, I just don't feel like I have anything really useful to say, and I don't want to fake it. Like I don't have anything that I'm sort of burning to write about. So maybe, and then other sort of basic things where it's like I want healthcare. I want I want to make a living. Yeah, yeah, like creature comforts. I want to have more control over my future. So I think yeah, I decided, if I'm thinking seriously about making a change, I should do it sooner rather than later. And I should stop getting work experience in a field that I'm not sure I want to work in
Hmm.
anymore. So that's the shortest answer I can give you. There's a lot of other factors that went into making such a big decision. And it was hard, coming from academia gives you a real sense of identity.
Yeah.
It's very easy, like when you're a professor, it's very easy to explain to other people what you do. And they're kind of like, ooh, fancy, so it was hard. But it was definitely the right choice. Um, Also, since I've learned about myself that I tend to feel like I wanna do something new or learn something new or make a big change kind of every 7 years. You know, the 7-year itch is very real for me professionally. Yeah, so that I think that's just something that's in my nature that I really wanna learn something really, really new all the time. And I didn't see that happening if I stayed in the same job for the rest of my career.
Right. And I think it's very valid because I know there's at least one study that I've come across at some point. I forget exactly how many years they say it's healthy to change up your career. Um, I think it's probably somewhere along the lines of 7 years, maybe a little bit under that. Uh, that's actually kind of healthy to reevaluate.
I think I'm also in between this sort of like my parents' generation, although my parents didn't do this, but people of my parents' generation tended to stay with one career their whole lives. And
Mm-hmm.
then people younger than me, I think um, now it's really common to change jobs every 2 to 5 years. It's like the only sort of surefire way to get a raise or promotion or things
Mm-hmm.
like that. So
Yeah.
I think I've been sort of navigating that shift real time in thinking about a career. Yeah.
Well, it's actually kind of serendipitous that I oopsed and skipped over a question because your answer kind of actually leads it back into this question of what initially got you into music analysis for popular music in the first place.
Just love.
Just love.
Yeah. I mean, it's sort of odd that I spent all this time playing classical music, which I mean, I love all music, and I had some really, really fantastic experiences as a classical musician that I'll never forget. But my first love was popular music, and it was, I remember when I started having these moments later in undergrad and while I was at U Chicago where, people are like, okay, it's time for you to write a thesis. It's time for you to do some original research. What do you want to write about? And, when I was at U Chicago, I was like, I want to write about really interesting music videos. I want to write about Bjork. I want to write about, so like, I've always really cared about popular culture. I've always really taken pop culture really seriously. Because it's something that's just been very important to me. It's sort of a constant companion. I mean, like K-dramas. I'd say like it's I don't know. It's important to delight in things, and I have such like appreciation for people who make things that are delightful. So I think I just wanted to study that seriously and sort of investigate my own experience and hopefully be able to communicate something useful about it to other people.
And I kind of feel the same way. I'm finishing up my thesis this semester, going to start my dissertation next semester. My dissertation is going to be focused on popular music from the 50s and 60s, but specifically those of the spooky, supernatural themed
Oh,
topics. So getting into the monster mash and
yes.
everything else in between, because
That's
that's
so
where my
wonderful.
passion lies.
Yes, yes. I mean, it's such hard work that you can only do what you feel passionate about.
Yeah,
Otherwise, it's really difficult to sustain that kind of inquiry and research and revision and all of it.
yeah. Um, but getting specifically into your dissertation, hearing women's voices in popular song, analyzing sound and identity in country and soul. You spoke of gender identities and politics expressed in women's country and soul in the late 1960s, which I absolutely love, by the way. Um, what were the determining factors you considered when choosing the specific musical examples you were going to analyze?
Yeah, I mean, it took a long time for all of that to come together, and I'm still not totally convinced that it gelled completely. because I was trying to do so many things in that dissertation. But it started out of coursework that I had done at Columbia. And my advisor, Ellie Hassama, I took many pop music analysis courses with her. I also went outside and studied some, feminist theory and got a certification in that, which was a actually fantastic experience. And so it came out of some artists that I had already started working on for things, like seminar papers and stuff. So I'd already written about Dolly Parton because she's so fascinating. And her gender identity is such a big part, and her sexuality is such a big part of her persona and her music. And she also is such a seriously talented musician. She has yeah. So I think, and also just an interest in that time period. So yeah, artists that I was already studying, artists that I just love listening to. I've always had a super soft spot for Gladys Knight. Of all of my dissertation artists, Gladys Knight is the person that I still listen to the most often for pleasure. And then also just sort of an interest in that time period, second wave feminism, this kind of this really intense moment in history in the late 60s of social change. Yeah, so then I, so I had to sort of back engineer my way into some kind of thesis because I was like, all of these things are interesting. They seem related. They seem related to the idea that I want to talk about popular music as, cultural objects and things that influence people and how they think of themselves and how they express their own identities and the kind of, frameworks that we create for ourselves of what's a man, what's a woman, what's a working class person, all of this stuff. So I don't know how good of an answer that is. It's very organic, but also based a lot on just what I personally found interesting. And finding artists that could really had a good amount of work that I could get into, stuff that could really yield some interesting results when I sort of got into it.
I love that answer. Yeah. Um, in the article, which I did a presentation on for my class, a system for describing vocal timbre in popular song, you reference four areas of sensation when discerning descriptions of vocal timbre. Can you explain your process of coming up with that system?
Yeah, so I actually went and reread the article this morning because I was like, if I can remember what I wrote. And I was like, okay, it's still I still agree with this, I think. But it was fun reading my literature review. I was like, oh, I don't remember a lot of this part of the article. Because the thing that really stuck out to me as soon as I, thinking about that question, it was really based on my own embodied experience of just singing casually as a total amateur, and just sort of engaged listener. It was based on my experience taking vocal lessons with a voice teacher who was very aware of, I mean, all voice teachers have to be this way. I think she was just sort of particularly so very aware of the, bodily attitude in relationship to how you produce sound. And then I think also reading, there's I don't know. I haven't really checked out I know there's now with YouTube, there's this amazing proliferation of vocal teachers who are actually talking about their technique online.
Oh,
With the
yes.
video medium, they're actually able to sort of demonstrate things much more clearly than they did in writing. But the vocal teachers that did actually try to write down their technique and talk about this. So there was Joe Estill. I found these sort of teaching manuals that she created that just happened to be in a library somewhere. She started her own business and published these, and other voice teachers. Yeah. And then also reading the research of surgeons and people who are working on vocal, things having to do with vocal disorders or diseases, or people are actually like getting in there. And I watched a lot of videos of, what are they called? Laryngoscopes. I'm probably
Mhm.
pronouncing that incorrectly, but just like a lot of videos of people's um vocal folds moving. I mean, it's totally bizarre that it's like, okay, we're gonna put a camera down your throat, now sing. Like it's really
Mhm.
but it was really helpful. So yeah, a lot of stuff from people who were in some way or other dealing a lot with the physical, the material elements of vocal production really helped me, yeah, come up with these like four different areas
Yeah.
to help me describe this.
When I presented your article in class, I specifically brought up a particular recording of that scope as far as showing vocal cords and, of course, giving everybody the content warning of if y'all get squeamish, now's the time to close the eyes, go in the
Yeah.
other room, whatever. But I feel like it's important to present that footage just to have that visual example of the vocal cords at work.
Just to see the instrument. I mean,
Yeah.
before I sort of focused on timbre specifically, I mean, I was just interested in timbre more generally, and the materials that the instrument are made of is so important. You have to like get into that. So yeah, having any of that stuff, any of those videos, or people like MRIs of those MRI videos of people
Mm-hmm.
singing, like just anything like that was really helpful, just to try to get a handle on the materials of timbral production.
Um, with that article, you use Aretha Franklin's You Make Me Feel Like a Natural Woman as the demonstration piece at the end for this system you discuss. Um, why did you choose that particular example? How did you go about deciding that was the best example to use?
Um, I think I think there were two examples. It was didn't I? Yeah, I think I talked about respect and natural woman.
Mm-hmm.
It was really, I wanted to go with Aretha Franklin because I mean, she's somebody who had already studied quite a bit and thought about her voice a lot. So I felt sort of capable of using her as an example. But also, I mean, I just really wanted my research to be useful to people. I wanted to choose an artist that a lot of people, just because of her popularity, and she's often on these lists of like greatest vocalists of the 20th century and stuff like that, that I really wanted to choose kind of a heavy hitter um, because I wanted as many people as possible to find a way to relate to what I was talking about. And I was like, I think a lot of people have had some kind of reaction to Aretha, like know who Aretha Franklin is, and have
Mm-hmm.
had some sort of reaction to listening to her singing. So yeah, like wanting to choose someone that would help me create like this broadest frame of reference possible, because there is already this kind of squishiness between people's experience. Yeah.
Squishiness.
I mean, there's no way for us to kind of level set or agree. Like we have different bodies, we have different experiences. We're always going to have, and these people hear things differently. And so I just thought, yeah, if I go with Aretha, hopefully many people will be able to relate to that or be interested in hearing about, her voice.
Yeah. I know I've seen reaction videos to where there's a certain React channel that exposes people to different things in pop culture, whether it's movies, music, whatever. And one of the videos, they get to Aretha Franklin's music, and no matter the age group, everybody's either singing or humming along with enthusiasm. So I,
Mhm.
I, I personally thought that was a great choice for the end of that article.
Oh, good. I'm
I
glad.
personally think so anyway.
That's good. That's what I was going for. So yeah, that's I appreciate that.
Um, so, when you taught at Colby College, you designed and introduced quite a few new courses. What advice do you have for those that get far enough into their career to start designing new courses of their own?
Um, yeah, it's so much work. It's so much work. And I was probably over ambitious. It probably was not good for my health to do that. That said, I'm really glad I'm glad it's in my rearview mirror and that I've sort of calmed down with age. But it was a really, at the time, I realized even that it was a really special experience to be able to do that. Because people get jobs all kinds of places, and you can end up somewhere where maybe it's a pretty big music department, but you have to teach the curriculum, you have to teach the textbook. There is, because it's a big program, there has to be agreement. Everybody has to be sort of in lockstep with one another, and people have way fewer opportunities to really experiment with trying new courses.
Mhm.
Um, I remember talking to people who were like, "Yeah, I would never be able to introduce a new like I'm still a junior scholar. I'd never be able to introduce a new course." So, um, I was very aware of how like what a gift it was to have this leeway where I was back at Colby College. It's where I did my undergrad. I already knew many of the people in the department, and we had this sort of mutual trust where they were like, "Yeah, just go. Like we just want it's crass, but like every music department needs butts and seats.
Mhm.
The humanities need to get people in. And so they were like, yeah, teach as long as you're not overlapping with existing courses, as long as you're not pulling students from somebody else's course, it's practical considerations like that.
Right.
As long as we have the resources, and they had a lovely, computer lab and stuff. So I could teach. I mean, the class that came out of that time that was sort of the most exciting for me was, and I taught it twice in the 2 years I was there, was I forgot what it's even called, but it was basically pop music analysis for non-musicians or
Mhm.
for musicians which is not actually true because a lot of the kids were musicians and really sophisticated musicians, but who didn't read five-line staff notation.
Okay.
And so using different tools, like video annotation or DAWs to as a way to kind of like get the music to hold still and talk about it and sort of experiment with different elements of music. So I I don't like it was a fairly popular class. I always had more students wanting to take it than I could accommodate.
That's a
um
good problem to have.
it's a great problem. So hopefully the students got something out of it, but it was just I mean, I appreciated that they showed up because it was an opportunity to try this thing that I had always been curious about where I'm like there's all these people making music all the time without any of the things that I learned as an undergrad or in grad school. And why can't we teach them a class? Which people do now and people have done before, but it was a nice opportunity for me to try that and said like just what does this look like and how do we get around this issue of like you guys don't know Western music notation and I'm not going to teach you. How do we talk about music?
Mhm.
Yeah.
I also went back and taught for a couple of years at the school I did my undergrad at, and it
Mhm.
was an interesting experience. Part of the reason why I specifically asked that question is because eventually, and I have other professors that are saying, yeah, that's a great idea, is wanting to introduce at some point, wherever I end up teaching, uh, essentially a music appreciation course, spooky edition.
Nice.
Basically, still focusing on all the nuts and bolts of uh, basic musician or basic music qualities, getting into melody, harmony, all those things, but specifically focusing on music examples that have those topics, as well as talking about different trends of concentrated areas where there seem to be a lot of spooky themed tunes and going into why that was. Obviously, the 50s and 60s would be a big part of that, but I
Mhm.
digress.
Well, and I think that when I would when I would sort of eavesdrop on my students and listen to them talk about other courses that they got really excited about, they would talk about like their history teachers who just who were like really great storytellers and who were really passionate about what they, and so it was like the student could have kind of no previous interest in the class, but I think that a lot of students were really just sort of found it very like energizing and animating to watch somebody be really passionate about something. I mean, it's something that I think so many people want in their lives. And so it's just nice to be in the presence of that, of somebody who's like found the thing that they really, really care about. And now they're like here to tell you about it and they're here to help you learn about it. I think that's infectious and that people just want to experience that so they can hopefully find it in their own lives and kind of take that energy and that joy to whatever it is that they're doing. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think that I realized I didn't quite answer your question. Like, I don't have advice for people who are, a lot of it is circumstantial of whether you have the opportunity to create your own courses. And it's up to people whether they want to do it a little bit at a time or jump in with both feet and figure it out later. But students always respond well to hearing you get excited about something.
Yeah. No, saw some advice in there, especially the whole it's a lot of work. Prepared, it's a lot of work. So if you really want to develop a course, you need to be passionate about it and be prepared to do a whole lot of work. So no, there was advice in there.
Okay, good. Thank you. That's very generous.
So the last question I have is, do you have any advice for those that want to pursue careers in music theory education, whether it's in a teaching, research, or even an administrative capacity, as you have had experience in all three?
um, I I think the short answer is no, because or like I have no specific advice because the circumstances of my life and where I've found myself are I'm like so much of it is luck and happenstance and who you know and yeah, so I don't have any specific advice other than it's just very important to dedicate some time to knowing yourself, um, so that and then to the extent it's possible, just lifting your head up and looking around every once in a while so you can be like, okay, I'm still doing what I really want to be doing, or okay, it's time for something else. But yeah, I don't know. I think other than that, everybody's just got to do their own thing, because everybody is coming from a different background. So I think one thing that I learned from getting into a career and realizing that it wasn't the right career for me is that um, there's absolutely no harm in trying things. I know I'm the type of person that I can't know if I like something until I actually do it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but that it's also just very important to not resist yourself and who you are and try to, it's yeah, just to be real with yourself about where your talents lie and what your personality's like and all of that stuff. And not try to twist yourself in knots when when to pursue something that's no longer right for you. I feel like that's like the anti-career advice where I'm like, just don't do it. Just give up. Just change your mind. um, but I think it really is just check in with yourself. Because this is, I mean, teaching is hard. It's hard work. And yeah, you have to feel really passionate about it. You have to get something out of it in order to stick with it. So I don't know if that's good advice.
I I personally think it is.
Okay.
I really do. It is really important to know oneself before they get involved in anything. And if it's not right for you, that it's better to figure it out sooner rather than later so that you can devote time to something that you will enjoy, you will appreciate. So,
And it's all jobs are hard. Um, all like work is work. um, so yeah, it's the only thing that can kind of carry you through is finding something that gets you excited about it.
well, on that note, we'll go ahead and wrap this interview up. Kate, thank you so much again for agreeing to meet with me and finding some time, even if it was on the weekend, to get this interview up and running.
That's totally fine. I really appreciate you reaching out to me. It's been fun to kind of revisit some of this stuff that I haven't thought about in a little bit. And I don't know, I hope I've said anything that's worth listening to.
I think there's plenty. I think there's plenty.
Okay. Well, I'm glad to be of service to the extent I can be.
Okay. Have a good day, everybody.